You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. My God, it has been forever since I said that. I know. It's been like, 2.5 months? 33 was June 15th? Like a couple days after I moved here. I just want to apologize because that's not what I intended. I got a little busy trying to get my life sorted down here in the new home. But that is no excuse. I will admit that. It's no excuse at all, because even though I was busy trying to get my life on track, there was moments, I can admit there was probably at least a couple, like 2 or 3 moments, where I could have hopped onto this microphone and just let you guys know what's going on and review the most recent UFC card. Because that being said, despite me being busy, I haven't been busy enough where I haven't caught any of the UFC cards that have happened or any of the lower, promotion cards. So I've always kept up with my MMA. That being said, I may have been quiet, watching in the shadows, but I've been keeping up with MMA, and I have been thinking of all of you. I haven't just kind of went AWOL. I'm not abandoning the podcast. It's just I've been dealing with some changes down here, and I've completely neglected it. It's either slipped my mind or I've just decided to neglect it. But I'm, taking the full fault right now. I'm apologizing, and I'm back. That being said, this is going to be a Saturday podcast, Friday podcast, can't talk podcast. Depends on when this is going to come out, when I have it edited and everything. But here's the thing. I know usually I don't do Friday/Saturday podcasts. I do Sundays. Well, like I said, here's the thing. That's no longer happening. Sunday podcasts are no longer a thing. I have to get used to my work schedule. So don't expect another episode in the coming week, because I have to get used to my new work schedule. But after the coming week, so assumedly not this coming fight night. Well, actually, I probably won't be reviewing this fight night. I'll be reviewing it next week. But so yes, this fight night. But I'd say after next week's fight night, or if there is a next week's fight night, just assume on the Wednesday/Thursday of that week following it, that there will be a podcast. From now on, starting that week in September, that first week in September, I will be doing podcasts on Wednesday/Thursday, depends on when it comes out. Obviously, I will be recording on Wednesday, depending on when I get it edited and I have it uploaded, or when you guys see it, it'll be a Wednesday/Thursday podcast. But that being said, it's going to be a complete overhaul of the entire podcast. I'll still be, covering the cards and everything. I'll still be going through the results. But that being said, it'll be kind of like a midweek podcast where I'll cover last week's event, and then I'll be able to do my predictions properly for this week's coming event. And then, I'll be able to throw some news in here and there, because it's not like I'm not covering the event the day after it happened. I'm waiting a couple days where there could be some newsworthy things that pop out of it, because usually that's the case. After I upload these podcasts, I always keep scrolling social media and I see these news articles, and it's like, fuck, I could have talked about this on the podcast. That sucks. It's already uploaded. I'm going to have to wait till next podcast. And then by the time next podcast happens, I usually forget about it, or I forget putting it on my little notes thing that I have on my computer where it shows the podcast notes. That being said, this episode, I'm kind of freeballing it because we have a lot of events to cover. I needed to get that out there and kind of let everybody know that there's going to be a schedule change. This will be the last podcast that kind of comes out on the weekend. There will be no podcast this coming week after this fight night, so don't expect a podcast this coming week. So after Sunday this coming week, don't expect one on Wednesday. It's the next week after that there will be one on Wednesday, and then every Wednesday/Thursday after that. But I kind of wanted to get on the mic, get that out there. And like I said, we have quite a bit of events to cover. There's a whole lot more to cover in regards of like MMA events. There's Bellator. There was that fucking freak show, and I think Russia or wherever it was, the War 2, where they had like 3v3 events and stuff, and it was just retarded but awesome. But anyway, yeah, there was just a lot of events that I've completely missed. Two pay-per-views, in fact, that I've missed. Like 5 or 6 fight nights, two pay-per-views. We've got a lot to talk about. And that being said, I won't be talking about the prelims of any of these fight cards because I want to get through this shit as quickly as possible, so then I can start covering what's coming, like this fight night that's going to be happening after, like the next day after I upload this, because hopefully this will be coming out on the Friday. I can do my predictions for this fight night and everything, and then we'll be on our merry little way. But we've got a lot of fights to talk about. So the last not the last pay-per-view. Technically, the last event I covered was the pay-per-view, but the last event I covered was UFC 263. So a lot has happened since then, even though we've had like a week or two off from UFC events since then. There's been quite a bit of events. I have literally, let's count them right here with me, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tabs open of just UFC events of the main cards. That's a lot. But anyway, we have a lot to cover. Like I said, that is 2 pay-per-views, 6 fight nights. Man, I was actually really just guessing before I counted those tabs. I'm pretty proud of myself. That was a great estimate. But anyway, let's get into these events. The first one that I want to talk about was the featherweight main event that happened after UFC 263, which was Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, against Dan 50K Ige. And I gotta say, it was a good fight. It was a great fight. Chan Sung Jung went in, and we'll talk about that in a bit because the main card was pretty great too. To start off the main card, we had the welterweights go up, and it was the older Lima brother going up against Matt Brown, and it was a great fight from both guys around. It was a gritty fight, man. I thought Lima had the first round going into it, even though Matt Brown had his moments, but then Matt Brown started picking up the pace in the second round, and it was back and forth. And if I remember correctly, Matt Brown hit a nice fucking like elbow that just dropped Lima, and Matt Brown just followed up with the shots. But it was nice. It was a great fight. It was exactly what I expected, especially from Matt Brown. Every time Matt Brown steps into that cage, he is just a fucking warrior. Like, he brings out the brawler in whoever he's fighting. I love it. And he's like another Carlos Condit, because Carlos Condit had the tendency to do that. What am I saying? I don't think he's retired yet. He's still looking for fights, but yeah, Carlos Condit has that tendency to bring out the brawler in people, and it's awesome. It's awesome to watch. It just makes for a great spectacle in the cage, and I love it. But that was what started the card. And then the second fight was a middleweight fight between Wellington Turman and Bruno Silva, which also ended in a KO from Bruno Silva, making me think what the hell was in the water in the Apex that night, because, my God, Wellington Turman got just completely starched after a decent round, and then after that, it was the featherweights. It was Julian Erosa going up against Choi Sung-woo, and again, first round, Chung Sung-woo knocks Julian Erosa out. What the fuck is in the water of the Apex? Like, what the hell? That brings us to our bantamweights. It was actually a fight that I was really excited for. Marlon Vera versus Davey Grant. For those who don't know Marlon Vera, if you're a Sugar Show fan, you'll know who Marlon Vera is. He beat your boy. But anyway, he and Davey Grant had fought once before. If I remember correctly, Davey Grant got the nod in their last bout, I believe, by a split decision. So this was a rematch of their fight from, like, I believe 2016 or 2017, something like that, maybe even earlier. And both guys have improved, right? Both guys have improved leaps and bounds since their last bouts against each other. But Marlon Vera was ultimately the guy who improved the most in a all-down, like, just a back-and-forth war between both guys. Marlon Vera just proved to be the more improved fighter and ended up getting the judges' nod, I believe 29-28 unanimously. That brought us to the heavyweight co-main event, where, honestly, for a veteran like Alexei Oleinik, I either saw him winning by finish or not winning at all. And I was right, going up against Sergey Spivak, who's been kind of just doing pretty damn good in the heavyweight division. Not that being said, the heavyweight division is not that strong. It's not the weakest it's ever been. I could always, quote the Tim Sylvia era for that one, but It's still not as great as the other divisions, even though we've got Francis Ngannou as the champ and Cyril Gane as the interim champ, which we'll get into later. But it's just one of those things where this was kind of a foregone conclusion before the fight started. Alexei Oleinik has some slick submissions. Almost, I believe, like 46 of his wins are by submission, and then like a couple are by knockout, and then the rest are decision. He has 59 wins, by the way, folks. 59 wins, 16 losses. This man just loves to fight for the art of the fight, and he's a veteran inside the cage. Not just the octagon, rings, cages, wherever they make you fight sanctioned fights, he'll fight you. And he showed that night. But Sergey Spivak was better, keeping it on the feet, better on the ground, got out of submissions, and just ultimately got the judge's nod against Alexei Oleinik, which was kind of upsetting to me. But hey, you're a veteran. You're a one-trick pony. You can, throw that shit up sometimes, but, eventually a one-trick pony is only good for one thing. So, right? That brings us to the main event I kind of spoiled. Chan Sung Jung versus Dan Ige. This was an awesome fight. All 5 rounds it went. Dan Ige still in the fight despite Chan Sung Jung just outstriking him. Dan Ige hitting some decent shots on the Korean Zombie. Just an all-around back-and-forth fight, which saw Chan Sung Jung more so control the rounds. But that being said, it wasn't a brutal beatdown, like Holloway Cater. That was fucking murder. But anyway, it was a great fight, a great main event. Dan Ige showed his heart, showed why he's fit for these main events. And Chan Sung Jung just showed why he's still in the UFC, even after all these years, after his, mandatory military service and everything. He shows why he's still a fucking stud in the featherweight division. It was a great goddamn fight. I loved it. My fiance, funny enough, actually loved it. It was the first UFC event she watched, the first UFC main event she watched with me live. But yeah, it was a great fight. I loved it. And honestly, I can't think of any fights to make after that. Chan Sung Jung is probably just going to have to wait for some fights to open up. This was a while ago, though, so I think he's scheduled to fight now, if I remember correctly. I'll get back to you guys on that one probably later. But it was just a great fight. Both guys, I felt, should have got the Fight of the Night honors if they didn't. I don't remember if they did, but it was a great fight. I loved watching it live. And if you have Fight Pass, go back and watch this one. It was a nice fight. It was a great fight to get the blood pumping. And it was an all-around great event. Not some big names on the cards other than, Matt Brown, Diego Lima, Marlon Vera, Davey Grant, Alexei Oleinik, and then the main event. All the fights were pretty goddamn great, other than the heavyweight co-main. But all the fights were pretty fucking great. They were finishes, great all back-and-forth unanimous decisions. It was just a great event all around. A great fight night to precede a pretty decent pay-per-view, honestly. But anyway, that brings us to our next card, which was the fight that actually saw good old Cyril Gane reach his interim title status. So we'll get into that event. But before we get into that main event, it started off with a lightweight bout between Renato Moicano. I believe it was Renato's return to lightweight, or maybe second fight at lightweight, against Jai Herbert. And, Renato Moicano did incredible in the first round. Despite Jai Herbert staying in it, Renato Moicano just dominated the first round, and then in the second round did it again. Just showed absolute slick skills on the ground, and ended up finding a submission near the end of the second round to score the win in the first fight of the night. And then Tim Means versus Nicholas Dalby was the next fight of the night, which saw Tim Means win a fucking brutal war between him and Nicholas Dalby. It was pretty awesome, honestly. That being said, it was a good fight that led into a featherweight bout that was believed to be probably Fight of the Night honors on the main card, if not the next one. But unfortunately, despite the first 2 fights starting pretty goddamn great, like the first 2 fights were pretty fucking great, This featherweight bout between Andre Fili versus Daniel Pineda was pretty good, but the fouls just kept a coming. And they were unintentional, so nobody got DQ'd. You could tell they were unintentional. It was just, things happen. You don't have your fingers fucking like clenched in when you're punching. You go for a fucking inside leg kick, go too high. You go for a teep kick, go too low by accident. Things happen, right? Unfortunately, the fouls kept a coming that night. And unfortunately, because if I remember, it was Pineda who couldn't continue. The fight was ruled a no contest. Now, I don't know if it's going to be rescheduled for another fight night or if it has been, but it was ruled a no contest, unfortunately. And no fighters got their win bonuses that night or any performance bonuses. They just got their show, which is pretty shitty considering how fighter pay is. But that being said, we got a pretty goddamn great bout after that with the bantamweights. My favorite bantamweight right now, who's reminding me of WEC Aldo, with Ioni Barcelos, going up against Timur Valiev. And it was a great back and forth fight, but Timur Valiev just landed those takedowns. He just showed why he's a better fucking fighter all around. These Eastern Europeans, man, they're scary. They're scary. I don't know what's in the water over there. I don't know what they're teaching them, but they're scary. And that's all I'm going to leave it at. They are scary. But it was a great fight nonetheless. Timur Valiev gets the nod by the judges' decision. That led us to a heavyweight co-main event with Ovince St. Preux making another appearance at heavyweight against Tanner Boser, fellow Canadian. Somebody that I would love to get on the podcast sometime to talk to. Fellow Canadian, man. And he's been just ripping and tearing in the heavyweight division. And it's just fucking awesome to see. This fight was pretty goddamn great. Both guys were back and forth. Ovince St. Preux is known to be a long, lanky fighter. He's kind of like discount John Jones with his strikes. And I say discount John Jones because he strikes like John Jones. He looks like John Jones, kind of. But he never got to the point where John Jones got to. Even if John Jones was roided out or not, he never got to the point where John Jones got to. So he's discount John Jones. Let me get this straight, though. He did one thing John Jones can't do for some reason, and that's fight at heavyweight. I know I've seen videos recently of John Jones training, and he's looking bulky as fucking scary. And I'm hoping he makes a heavyweight debut soon. I really am. I want to see him at heavyweight, but he just talks and talks and talks, and that's it. That's all. And it's what pisses me off. So Ovince St. Preux gets my nod because even though he's discount John Jones, he's doing something that John Jones can't seem to fucking do for some reason, and fight at heavyweight. Unfortunately, though, that was his downfall because despite a decent first round by Ovince St. Preux, Tanner Boser picked up the pace and caught a good shot on Ovince St. Preux that fucking knocked him out pretty goddamn clean. And Tanner Boser gets the nod via second round KO, and it was a pretty nice KO, honestly. So even though I wanted St. Preux to win, I was really happy that the fellow Canad won. I wanted to see the Canadian win low-key. But that brings us into yet another heavyweight fight, the main event of the evening. And there wasn't really much to talk about here because people were upset. People were very upset with how Gane fought. And it was very similar to how he fought against Rosenstrike. You're up against a fucking kickboxer who is equal to your skill and has probably as much power as you do, if not more, so one shot can end it. What are you going to do? You're going to keep the distance, set up takedowns, try not to get hit. You're going to minimize your damage, right? If you want to get this win, if you want to excel in this sport, you have to adapt to your fights. This is coming from a goddamn fan, by the way, and honestly, I don't know why the other fans couldn't realize this. I get it. You wanted to see an exciting fight between two kickboxers, but, if you put two strikers together, one just happens to have better fucking ground game, they're going to use that ground game because they don't want to stand. Unless they feel much more confident in their stand-up, they're not going to want to fucking stand, right? So, I'm not too mad about Cyril Gane's performance because he did exactly what the game plan probably was written down to do, and he executed it perfectly. He ended up getting a unanimous decision against Alexander Volkov, and he just skyrocketed himself into title shot potential. He was originally scheduled at UFC 265 to fight Francis Ngannou for the heavyweight title. And I believe Ngannou had to pull out citing injury. If not, I think it was injury. If not, maybe Ngannou said, no, I'm not ready. But I'm pretty sure it was injury because it was a done deal. Lewis steps in and he gets an interim title shot. So he'll eventually get that title shot later this year because, spoiler alert, unfortunately, Lewis didn't win that fight. How did he lose? We'll find out if you haven't already found out, obviously. But anyway, he did exactly what the game plan was written down for him to do. He followed it to a T, and he won. And he got himself a title shot with it. So honestly, I ain't mad. The people shouldn't be mad. Let's move on, because we have a lot more events to cover, and holy fucking Jesus Christ. The next one is pretty goddamn great, let's be honest. It's the pay-per-view. It's UFC 264. This was the first main card, the first pay-per-view. I bought it, by the way. I didn't fucking... I didn't illegally stream it like I usually do. I bought it. It was the first actual event that my fiance watched with me, and it was an awesome event. My God. Let's just talk about that first fight on the main card. Sean O'Malley versus late replacement newcomer Chris Moutinho. Sean O'Malley, known for his highlight reel knockouts, weird technical style where just one shot can fucking stun you and put you on your ass, and then he can finish you. Holy shitteroony magaroony. That's what Sean O'Malley's all about, right? Well, fuck me. Everybody was calling this kid, Chris Moutinho, cannon fodder. He's not going to win. He's going to get knocked out in 1 or 2. Holy shit, my guy. This guy fucking ate every shot that Sean O'Malley came with him and kept walking forward. He didn't back up. He kept walking forward. He'd throw his own. He hit Sean O'Malley with some decent shots. Obviously, Sean O'Malley got the better of him in the long run because he just completely outstruck Chris Moutinho, probably like 5,000 strikes to fucking 50 or something like that. But it was crazy. It was back and forth, even though Sean O'Malley had control of the whole fight. Chris Moutinho ate everything that Sean O'Malley came at him. And honestly, it would have went to unanimous decision, Sean O'Malley's way, if the fight wasn't stopped. And honestly, it was a controversial stoppage because when the ref stepped in, Chris Moutinho wasn't out of it. He was cohesive, responsive, still fighting back. He just ate too many shots, but he was getting out of it. As soon as the ref stopped it, he was arguing the stoppage. He wasn't stumbling. He was walking around just normal. He just ate all of those fucking shots, and the fight shouldn't have been stopped. But other than that, it was a great fight. Back and forth. Sean O'Malley putting on a complete striking clinic, and this guy just not going down from a single fucking strike, just eating them all like they're just snacks. Like Sean O'Malley's feeding him popcorn from the concession stand. He's just eating that shit. It was crazy. My fucking fiance was on her feet. She was loving it. To this day, she still asks about that green-haired kid that took all those shots. She's like, has that green-haired kid gotten a fight yet? And I'm like, yeah, like finally, recently he has. So I'm like, yeah, but every other time I'm like, no, babe, no, not yet. And I'm just so happy because it's like first fight on the card, and she's still remembering the dude who got his shit pushed in to this day. And she's not a fan. She's a fucking as casual can come. She's only getting into it because of me, because she wants to get into something that I'm into. And she's still asking about that guy. Like, she still remembers that fucking fight. It's crazy. It was a great way to start the main event. I'm getting all giddy talking about it again. Holy shit. Let me collect myself. The next fight was another bantamweight fight, but a women's bantamweight fight. A great fight, by the way, on paper. Irina Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. However, even though this fight happened a month ago, this fight has strewn some controversy recently. I'll get into it after. So, this fight was pretty much Kunitskaya landing her shots, but Irina Aldana landing the more heavier shots and just being the better fighter, landing body shots and everything. And Why did I say landing body shots and everything? You'll find out. Why am I bringing why am I bringing light to body shots? You'll find out in a minute. But anyway, that led to a almost end, like it was a 25 seconds left on the clock TKO finish of Yana Kunitskaya, and Irina Aldana wins. Now, you're probably wondering, Dillo, why the fuck are you talking about body shots? Why are you making such emphasis on body shots? All right. So, as I said before, this fight has drawn some controversy recently. And that's because Yana Kunitskaya has come out recently stating that she is pregnant with another one of Thiago Santos's babies, which is awesome. We're all happy for her. But it brought up the question because when she made the photo, I don't know if she was just pushing her tummy out to kind of make the cute gesture of, look at me, I'm pregnant, or if she was actually that far along at that point of the picture. But usually you don't show like that till like 3 months, right? And a lot of us were wondering, did she fight with the baby in her belly? Like, did she fight at like 1 month, 2 months? What the fuck? Like, I mean, there was some douchebag people making some pretty funny jokes. You know, the picture of the doll with the squished face. They're like Yana Kunitskaya's baby when it comes out and stuff like that. But it just, again, it brought a lot of controversy because people are like, what the fuck? Did this bitch just fight pregnant? Like, cool, but also not cool because baby in your belly. Now that baby is probably going to be either brain damaged or you could have lost it already and you just didn't know. But, yeah, no, just holy shit. I'm not one to tell a woman what to do with her body. I'm not like that. But why the fuck would you fight if you are suspected to be at least a month pregnant or whatever? Like, what the shit? What the shit? But anyway, that's enough on that fight. I just wanted to bring that out there because it brought up some controversy recently, and it really, really got the MMA Twitter universe just thinking. Anyway, the next fight was a heavyweight bout, and this one had me up on my feet, celebrating. And you'll find out in a second because it was Tai Tuivasa, everyone's favorite Aussie and shoey doer, against everyone's most hated domestic abuser and former football player, Greg Hardy, who's had a pretty okay MMA career, and everybody's hated it because everybody feels like he's been fed tomato cans. So he got put up against someone of actual, like, contendership, you know, top fucking 10, top 5, whatever. And within a minute, he came in thinking he was all Mr. Pitbull, like, I'm gonna beat you up type shit. And Tai Tuivasa, through his counter combo, bop, knocks Greg Hardy out cold. Greg Hardy's holding on to the ref like it's his mom. And it was hilarious to see in the entire universe, not just the Twitter universe, the entire universe, mainstream media, everybody just rejoiced because fuck Greg Hardy. Fuck that domestic abusing piece of trash. And it was hilarious to see him get his fucking jaw relocated to the back of his fucking head by Tai Tuivasa, who is such a great all-around guy, like such a down-to-earth dude. And he even said it in his like pre-fight interviews. He's gonna fucking make Greg Hardy hurt. He hates him. Like, there was beef between these two because Tai Tuivasa does not like domestic abusers, and he wanted to fucking do something to that domestic abuser, which he did. So this one had me not like screaming, but like I got up out of my seat, my arms up in the air, and I was like, yes, yes, beautiful, beautiful. I was like celebrating on Twitter and everything. Like, I was so happy just to see this fucking piece of shit fall. And no better dude could do it too. Like, Tai Tuivasa is such a fucking party guy, down to earth dude, and he just fucking relocates Greg Hardy's brain. It was awesome. Anyway, let's get on to the co-main event because it was Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, the nicest motherfucker in the UFC in my opinion, other than Chase Hooper, because Chase Hooper is like, hi mister, I'm here to take your daughter out. I'll make sure to have her back by 10. Like, he's such a nice kid. But anyway, why am I calling him a kid? He's my age. And he's achieved more than I've achieved. But anyway, so this fight was pretty back and forth. And that's all I'm going to say. Because it was good, but even though it was back and forth, it was clear that Gilbert was getting the better of Stephen Thompson in some exchanges because he would take Stephen Thompson down, and he did stand with Stephen Thompson, surprisingly, but it was just Gilbert's night, and Stephen Thompson wasn't too mad about it, but, it is what it is. Y'all are here for the meat and potatoes. You're all here for the Dustin Poirier-Conor McGregor fight, and there's really not much to talk about. Y'all know what fucking happened by now. Dustin Poirier made him pull guard on him. Dustin Poirier beat the shit out of him on the ground when dumbass Conor pulled guard. Dustin got him up, or got back up with him. Checked the leg kick from Conor, and then Conor broke his ankle and squealed like a little girl. Yeah, everybody knows what happened. Conor got finished after he fell and squealed like a little girl. And Conor's pretty upset about it now, but fuck Conor McGregor because he said some really disgusting shit leading up to the fight and after the fight. Mostly after the fight. Talking about how Joe Lee's in his DMs and he's gonna fuck Joe Lee, talking shit about Joe Lee, saying that Joe Lee is Dustin's husband, all this shit, and he's still going on about it. It's been a month. It's been a fucking month since the fight, and he's still going on about it. Dustin doesn't seem to care too much about it. He's like, yeah, I'll take the Conor fight if I want to so I can shut him up again, but, I'm just here to promote my hot sauce, guys. Hey, guys, buy some hot sauce. And it's fucking hilarious. But, yeah, no, Conor just made himself look like a complete asshat. And even though there's still some delusional Conor McGregor fans, it's almost like his entire fan base has just turned on him recently because of these comments. Everybody's like, I used to be a Conor McGregor fan, but it's not that he lost. It's how he's handling these losses, and it's absolutely pitiful and pathetic. It's disgusting. And it's like, yeah, it is, man. It is. He's handling it like a complete and fucking utter child, right? Anyway, that being said, that was 264. Yeah, let's get into the next main event, which was, I believe, Islam Makhachev being fed Thiago Moises. Now, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this was supposed to be another main event before Islam Makhachev took it. But some things happen. This is MMA. Fights fall through. And unfortunately, Islam Makhachev being fed an okay contender that still can't compete on Makhachev's level becomes the main event. And that's exactly what happened. There's not really much to talk about here. Gabriel Benitez and Billy Quarantillo went back and forth. Billy Quarantillo knocked him out in the third round. Adolfo Vieira didn't fucking gas himself out too much this time and actually got the submission win in the third round. Jeremy Stevens got submitted really fucking quickly by Mateo Scamro in the first round. Marion Renault got knocked out by Misha Tate, or not knocked out, but finished by Misha Tate in the third round, which was Misha Tate's return, which was fucking awesome. That was probably the highlight of the main card, in my opinion, the only highlight of the main card. And then Islam Makhachev just going back and forth with Thiago Moises, but dominantly controlling him on the ground and getting a fourth-round submission to finish him in the main event. Makhachev supreme. Makhachev should face a top 3, top 4 contender, please. Please. Please, let's test Islam with somebody actually really fucking good. Please. Please, I'm begging. Please. Anyway, that was Makhachev versus Moises. I didn't really give a fuck about that event. Like I said, the only fight that I really cared about was Jeremy Stevens possibly getting a knockout, but not, and Misha Tate returning because I love Misha Tate. I love that mommy. So, yeah, I was really disappointed with this card, and it seemed like everybody else was. But it was awesome that, not a single fight ended via decision. That's the only highlight of the card, other than Misha Tate's fight, was that not a single fight went to decision. So none of us had to sit through some boring-ass grinding through decisions, right? That being said, let's take a fucking quick little break here. And I'll cover the rest of the events, and then I'll cover this weekend's event. I'm going to take a quick break, take a drink, because I can feel it, and you can probably hear it. My throat's getting a little raspy, a little dry. So I'm going to take a drink. You guys listen to this sponsor, and we'll be back with Sandhagen versus good old TJ Dildo Shaw. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Before we continue on to the fights, I just want to thank Smooth My Balls for sponsoring this episode. Ladies, fellas, let's be real. It's uncomfy to have a jungle down there. And be honest with yourself. Your significant other may not like it either. You don't have to worry about that anymore with Smooth My Balls Turf Chopper 3.0. This little bad boy has a diamond groove grip to make it easier to grip in the shower, as well as a long-lasting battery that is waterproof so it can be used in the shower as well. Also, if you're worried about cutting yourself up down there, well, then the Turf Chopper has you covered with its alloy polished blade that has a micro-sized teeth that makes it practically impossible to nick yourself down there. Also, cleanup is easy too with their Pube Muncher 1.0, a little hair vacuum like thing that makes cleaning up your pubes as easy as clapping. So, if you want to stay clean down there, you can visit www.smoothmyballs.com/Dillo, that's DILLO, for 15% off of your order, or enter code DILLO, DILLO, at checkout for 15% off. Once again, thank you to Smooth My Balls for sponsoring this episode. And we're back. So, let's get continuing with the rest of these fights that I have missed and I have neglected to tell you guys about. So, the next event we were going to talk about was Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dildo Shaw. So, before we get into the main event, let's talk about the event, but let's talk about the background of the main event first. So for those who don't know, which I don't know how, if you're watching this sport, you don't know unless you're a complete casual, TJ Dillashaw is making his return after 2 years after popping for a banned substance known as EPO. EPO helps with, I believe, the blood oxygen, or the something with the blood oxygen levels in your system, allows blood to pass through quicker, allows for easier access ways for your oxygen to go through, like better passageways and stuff. Helps with cardio is probably the best way to put it. Is helps with cardio. Helps with cardio when you have a bad weight cut. And I have a feeling a lot of people are calling him a fucking cheat, which he is for that fight, but I don't think he did it for any of his bantamweight fights. But his flyweight fight, like his flyweight weight cut, looked pretty goddamn bad. For those who don't know, he popped after losing in like 38 seconds to Henry Cejudo in the main event of Fight Night on ESPN Plus 1 or ESPN 1. And he hasn't returned since this coming fight that I'll be talking about. But I believe because his weight cut was so rough, he probably was using it to help with cardio issues, which that still doesn't excuse him. But it also kind of, I feel, nullifies the fact that he's not a cheat, because he's never popped dirty any other time in his career, even in the early days of USADA fucking abusing the poor roster. Like, he never popped dirty. That was his one and only time during the USADA era so far that he's popped dirty. And honestly, even after his fight with Corey Sandhagen, because it's been like, oh, actually, it's been a month exactly, he has not popped dirty at all. So yeah, I don't think he's a dirty fighter. I think just for that one fight, he tried to get an advantage because his weight cut was so bad. It doesn't excuse him, but I don't think he's an all-around cheater, like he's going to continue doing it. I think he's learned his lesson. Anyway, let's get into these fights. The fight card started off, like the main card started off with a bantamweight bout between Adrian Yanez and Randy Zohan Costa. This was a fight that I was really surprised was on the lower end of the main card. I believe it was supposed to be a prelim headliner, and then something happened to one of the fights on the main card. It got dropped up or something. In my opinion, this should have been a co-main event because they had been going back and forth, not in a bad way, but more in like a fun, wholesome way on Twitter, and they'd been hyping their fight for weeks, months, since they'd been trying to get the fight happening. Like, way before the fight was even scheduled or even thought of, they were trying to get the fight happening, hyping it up and everything. So, in my personal opinion, Cather Phillips and Paiva being the being the co-main was an absolute retarded decision by the matchmakers. But anyway, that's just my little bit and piece. You'll hear another one of my bits and pieces later in the next fight, actually. But anyway, let's get into the actual fight. This fight was Dr. Pepper versus Reese's, Yanez versus Costa. This fight was actually amazing. Both guys going back and forth, incredible striking, crazy ass scrambling on the ground. Both guys just going back and forth in all skill aspects. But Adrian Yanez in the second round ultimately getting the TKO victory. Like, he caught, actually, no, he got the KO victory. He knocked Costa out. But both guys were bringing it. It was a fast-paced back-and-forth brawl. Like, there was only, like, other than Costa getting knocked out, there wasn't a chance where either fighter was seriously in trouble. They were just going back and forth, bringing it, giving it their all. It was a great way to start the main card. Even though I agree it was a great start to the main card, I still think they would have been a great co-main event to hype everyone up for the main event. But it was a great start to the main card. Both fighters brought it. Congrats to Adrian Yanez for getting the knockout victory in a hard-fought fight, honestly. Randy Costa did not make that easy for him. I'm not going to call Randy Costa a slouch, sorry, because he got knocked out. He did not make it easy for poor Yanez. Anyway, let's get into the next fight, because this fight was absolute bullshit. It was Miranda Maverick versus everyone's hated the future prodigy, Maycee Barber. I fucking hate her so much, and I'm telling you now, this isn't just from biasism that I hate this fight. I hate this fight because I'm going to tell you now, and any other person who was watching the event will tell you the same goddamn thing. All right? This fight was all Miranda Maverick rounds 1 and 2. Like, Miranda, maybe Maycee picked it up at the end of round 2, but there is no way that Miranda Maverick did not win that second round. She easily won round 1, easily won round 2. The only round that I'd maybe argue for Barber was round 3, and even then, Barber struggled. She got slightly the better of Miranda Maverick in that fight, or in that round, but still struggled, and there was a heavy argument for it being a Miranda Maverick round. But here's the kicker, okay? So even if Maycee Barber won that round, it'd still leave the judges' scorecard 29-28 to Miranda Maverick. So this is where everyone just screamed bullshit, started questioning the judges. Not a single person except for maybe Maycee Barber's fucking simps and her dad agreed with this decision. Everybody, including myself, were absolutely fucking livid. Miranda Maverick won that fight, but ended up losing it by like a fucking 29-28 split decision. I don't know what fucking fight those two other judges were watching, because Maycee Barber did not win 2 fucking rounds. I've went back, watched that fight a couple times. Several people have done the same thing, and they say the goddamn same thing, that Miranda Maverick clearly won the first 2 rounds, and it could have been arguable for the third one, but regardless, even if, that maybe leaves it 29-28 Miranda Maverick at worst. Like, it's a unanimous decision. It was an absolute bullshit decision. It was fucking disgusting. And might have kind of riled people up for the main events decision, but I'll get to that in a bit, because in my opinion, it wasn't controversial. It was just a close fight. But this fight was actually like, yeah, it was close, but it was clear Miranda Maverick ran away with it in the first 2 rounds. So she clearly had the fight in the third round no matter what. Like, Maycee had to finish Miranda. And somehow, Maycee Barber pulled that win out of her fucking ass. I don't know what she did. If she fucking slobbed on the knob of the judges before the fight, those 2 judges, she probably gave the, like, Hoover fucking suck shark vacuum cleaner sucking of the lifetime to get that decision, because there is no fucking way that fucking narcissistic cunt won that fight. And that is all I'm going to say on that. Miranda Maverick, I feel for you. That dumb bitch Maycee never won that fight. You won that fight very clearly. And even in a rematch, it goes the same fucking way, maybe worse for Maycee. Anyway, moving on to the next fight, because I've spent too much time raging about that fight. The next fight was a featherweight tilt between Darren Elkins and Derek Minnier, and it is exactly the way it fucking is expected to go. Both guys throwing strikes, Darren Elkins looking hurt, taking damage, delivering damage, and then in the second round, just delivering the ultimate damage that put Minnier down and out. And it was classic Darren Elkins fashion, where he will get the shit kicked out of him, but either in the second or third round after, saying enough's enough, he's going to fucking just hit you with a fucking strike that hurts you and then finish you because he just can pull that magical power out of his butthole. And it's fucking great. But anyway, Darren Elkins scores another TKO win. And we're moving on to the co-main event, the bantamweight fight that I didn't think should have been co-main. And I was right because it was utterly fucking boring, in my opinion. It didn't, it wasn't boring. It was a decent, intriguing fight. But it didn't hype me up enough for the main event the way that I feel Yanez and Costa would have hyped somebody up for the main event. That way, regardless of how the main event went, I don't think anybody would have gave a fuck if Yanez Costa was the co-main. But instead, this fight was the co-main where it was a clear winner and it was it was kind of exciting at times, but not what everybody expected. And then all of a sudden you get a fight like the main event. But before I go, Raulian Paiva won by unanimous decision. So there you go. I didn't care enough for that fight to even talk about it. I'm honest. I actually gave a fuck about the first 3 fights, and I just talked about them because I actually cared about them. Granted, I stopped watching the event live when the Macy Barber decision was announced. I was like, nope, this is going to be a bad night of decisions already. I can already tell. I do not want to need to buy a new fucking TV screen because of some bullshit decision. No, thank you. I'm going to bed. So I caught the fights the next day, and even watching that fight, the Kyler Phillips fight, I was like, nah, there's no way. Yanez versus Costa would have fucking blew this out of the water as co-main. Even though it didn't go all 3 rounds, it would have blew it out of the water like a fucking geyser. Seriously, like that. I was like, no, this is not co-main worthy. Anyway, that being said, we're gonna get into the main event now, and it was a fucking awesome fight. Now the decision, TJ Dillashaw won by a 48-47 decision, I believe, and a lot of people weren't happy about that because a lot of people thought Corey Sandhagen won. Well, I'm gonna tell you this because I was unbiased going into this fight. I kind of wanted Sandhagen to win just to kind of teach TJ a lesson, but I went into this fight unbiased, watching it in the morning when I woke up, and I could see it was a close fight. I could see where some people scored it for Corey Sandhagen, but it was in no way a robbery. I don't think it was a robbery. I think, at least for once during that fight card, the judges did something right, and it could have went either way. They needed to pick a winner, and TJ just happened to do a bit more damage and do more, and not in just damage, but on the ground as well to cap off the victory. It was a close fight, and it arguably could have gone either way. But that being said, TJ ultimately won. I didn't feel there was any controversy about it. Nothing even close to what the Miranda Maverick and Macy Barber controversy was, because that was bullshit. Like, there wasn't really many people arguing for Corey Sandhagen winning or losing. There was just some people that wanted Sandhagen to win that were calling it controversial. But when the Miranda Maverick one happened, my God, everybody just came out of the woodwork. Even some casual fans that don't watch really much were like, that was bullshit. That was bullshit. That shouldn't have fucking been Macy Barber's fight. That was bullshit. And it was like, wow, like it's seriously a fucking controversial decision. But anyway, that was Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. Let's get into the next event, which I believe was Hall versus Strickland, and wasn't that special. I actually didn't care for this entire card, and I was very disappointed in Uriah Hall. I felt this would have been a fight that Uriah Hall easily could win, but unfortunately, he didn't show up. That's all I'm going to say. But at least it had a decent main card of fights, because other than the Hall card, or other than the Hall fight, there was only one other fight that actually went to decision, and it wasn't actually boring. It was fun. That was Brian Barberena versus Jason Witt. And here's the thing. There is never a boring fight with Brian Barberena. He will bring the warrior out in you. That's a fact. And that's exactly what happened. Jason Witt was the better fighter and ended up getting the decision, but it was a fun fight back and forth all around, and it was exactly what you expected from a Brian Barberena fight. That being said, I think that either hyped, there was something either in the water and the apex for the next couple of fights, or that hyped up everybody else for the next couple of fights. Because after that banger, Colin Anglin and Melsik fucking Bagdasarian, whatever his name is, some confusing shit, were fighting in the featherweight division, and they both were going fucking back and forth. Second round comes, and Melsik gets the knockout. And then that just started a string from there on out. Because the welterweight division had a fight between Nicholas Stolze and Jared Gooden. And Jared Gooden got a knockout in less than 2 minutes. 1 minute, 8 seconds into the first round. And then, counting on that, I don't know why this bitch is always on the main card or in the co-main. Like, I've never heard anybody talk about her outside of the UFC talking about her when she's on a fight card. It's like they're trying to hype something up that's not there. But Cheyenne Bays versus Gloria DePaula. And Cheyenne Bays knocks out Gloria DePaula in exactly, on the dot, 1 minute in the first round. So you'd think after all 4 of those fights, there was a back and forth decision, 3 knockouts in a row, you'd think that would have made Uriah Hall hyped and violent-y, to fight Sean Strickland, this guy who's everybody's hating because he's this douchebag that doesn't give a fuck about mental health. He's literally gone on his Instagram, insulted people that gave him genuine answers, told people to fucking kill themselves, said that people who kill themselves are pussies. Even though this guy's a former meth head, I don't know if he still does it. I'm pretty sure he's a former addict. Still going out and telling people to fucking do meth and shit. Just being an absolute asshat. And everybody wanted this fucking douchebag to lose. But Uriah Hall didn't show up. Sean Strickland outstruck and outgrappled Uriah Hall and ended up getting a dominant unanimous decision. It was like 49-46 or something like that. Uriah Hall maybe won 1 round. It was just depressing. Nobody wanted this bald, monkey-eared fuck to win. Everybody wanted Uriah to win. But this dumb fucking meth head, and I genuinely do not like this guy. He has come out, he's a complete asshole. I'm going to treat him the same way I treat that fucking douchebag Irishman, Conor McGregor. I fucking hate them both because they're great fighters, but outside of the cage, they're trash human beings. I can separate the fighter's skills from the fighter. Right? I don't like Sean Strickland as much as I'm not going to fucking discount his skills. I just want to see him get his head caved in by somebody in the cage. Right? That's just how it is. But I'll never say that Sean Strickland is a complete ass fighter. And I'll never say that Conor McGregor is a complete ass fighter. They're just trash human beings. And unfortunately, that night, one of the shittiest human beings in the UFC won. So, do with that what you will. That brings us to the pay-per-view. We are at the pay-per-view. The UFC 265 pay-per-view. The one where I actually thought that maybe Adrian Yanez and Randy Costa should have been on, considering I'm pretty sure Yanez is a Houston native, and he's pretty big in Houston, and Costa wanted to fight in enemy waters, so it would have been pretty cool for that. But hey, we got the fight nonetheless. It delivered the way we expected. I loved it. Everybody loved it. Let's move on, because UFC 265. And obviously, the main event was Derek Lewis against Cyril Gane for the interim heavyweight title. So, let's start off with the first fight of the night, or the first fight of the main card, sorry, which was Song Yadong versus Casey Kenny. And Song Yadong, in a very close fought fight, dominated Casey Kenny just 2 rounds to 1, ended up winning a decision against Casey Kenny. And honestly, I think I'm over the Casey Kenny hate now, so I'm not going to laugh that Casey Kenny lost. It's whatever. You know, he said something stupid for being on the spot. Yeah, was it a fucking disgusting and shitty thing to do? Whatever. It's nothing to completely hate him for. But Song Yadong just being the better bantamweight that night. And honestly, I felt that Song Yadong was going to win this fight anyway. So he won very expectantly. Closer than I thought, but very expectedly by decision. And then that brought us to a women's strawweight bout, which was a I believe, a rematch of a fight that was, I believe, originally a draw, if I remember correctly, which was Angela Hill versus Tisha Torres. And Tisha Torres just, what can I say? Just dominated Angela Hill. Like, it's literally, like, it's probably the best way I can put it, is dominated her again. It was very, very dominant for a woman who's 5'1". She knows how to use that fucking reach disadvantage to her advantage. But yeah, Angela Hill got dominated. Tisha Torres did a great job closing the distance, getting the takedowns, initiating the clinch, landing shots in the clinch, just initiating her game plan altogether. And it was a great fight for Tisha Torres. Unfortunately, Angela Hill didn't get the W. But hey, I didn't have a horse in that race. It was a decent fight altogether. That brought us into the welterweight fight between Michael Chiesa and Vicente Luque, which was absolutely insane. Both guys brought it on the feet, and then it went onto the ground, and both guys were scrambling like fucking monkeys trying to grab a banana. It was nuts. It was fucking crazy. And then, out of the blue, Vicente Luque lands a choke. Catches Chiesa, forces him to tap. Chiesa's running out of the fucking cage towards the backstage. It's like, holy shit, what's going on? And it was insane because, like, Vicente Luque just literally did the same thing the fight before. He literally knocked Woodley down and then got him in a Darce choke, immediately choked him out. Like, it was nothing. Made him look like it was nothing, right? So I was like, wow, holy shit, dude, that was crazy. And then that brought us to the co-main event, which was Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munoz, which was a very great fight for Aldo, but still pretty goddamn close. Both guys brought it. It was back and forth. We saw little shades of Aldo from WEC landing his leg kicks, his ripping Muay Thai strikes. We saw Aldo be a little bit more technical with his footwork as well. Like, it was really nice to see Aldo back in that groove, and ended up winning I think a 29-28 decision against Pedro Munoz. It was a great fight though, and it was a great showing of Jose Aldo being kind of, even though he's out of his prime, it was like almost like shades of prime Aldo. It was really nice to see. It was a great fight altogether, and it was a great fight to get everyone hyped for the main event of the evening, which was Derek Lewis versus Cyril Gane. And it went the way you probably would have expected. Both guys just wanting to stand for the most part, but it wasn't like crazy strikes. Both guys were picking their shots. Lewis trying to close the distance and land his overhand right, or his haymaker, whatever you want to fucking call it. Gane using his reach advantage and his kickboxing skill to use those kicks to keep the distance and keep him at bay. A lot of people were giving shit to Gane for running away from Derek Lewis, but he would run to get out of the way of trouble and then initiate the fight again. Like, he wouldn't run away from the fight. He'd run away from incoming strikes, move out of the way, and then start striking again. He was just technically trying to get out of the way. What do you expect from a heavyweight, who moves like a fucking boulder, right? So I was really impressed with how Gane fought. It was very smart, very technical, on the outside, picked his shots. He hurt Derek Lewis a couple times. Derek Lewis caught him with a couple shots, but didn't exactly completely hurt Gane, just, made him feel it, and, Gane would laugh, smile. But yeah, it was a great main event for both guys. Gane had a better showing out in the third round. He hits Derek Lewis with a body shot and then has him up against the cage hurt. Starts hitting him with a couple strikes. Hits him with a knee, hits him with more strikes against the cage, and then drops him, like, forces him, like, keeled over on the ground, and starts hitting up some more follow-up shots. The ref's just forced to pull him off, and that was it. So, that being said, we're going to be seeing, I'm going to be very mad if we don't, but we're going to be seeing Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane for the heavyweight title. Now, granted, we have a Cameroonian born and an actual France born, but both guys made their mark in France. That's where they got their training. That's where they got their first couple fights. It's going to be a battle for France in the main event of whatever fucking pay-per-view they main event. And it's going to be awesome because we got Ngannou, who's who's a much better fighter now, much more technical, very choosing of his strikes, but has that power where all it takes is one. All it takes is one. Like, you don't need a combo like Derek Lewis, where Derek Lewis hits that one shot and then another shot to put you down. No matter what, all Ngannou needs is one shot, and then he'll put your lights out, and you'll be seeing the pearly gates of heaven. So it's going to be a great fight because we got Ngannou, who's got that one-shot knockout power, but then we got Gon, who's got that, that very incredible, intelligent knowledge base of reach advantage, but he doesn't have a reach advantage. He just knows how to use his reach to his advantage, and has decent wrestling skill. But then we have Ngannou, who's been improving in defensive wrestling for a good while now. So it's going to be a great main event. I'm excited for that one. And it was all in all a decent pay-per-view. Honestly, a lot of people were complaining about the interim title, but I actually rather enjoyed the entire card. And the main event was pretty nice. Even though it was an interim title, I enjoyed it. I think Lewis got that main event spot he was looking for, especially in his hometown of Houston. And Gon got that title shot he was looking for, and now he's guaranteed that actual title shot now that he has the interim title. They have no choice but to unify the title unless Gon says that he doesn't want to fight Ngannou, and then they strip him. They have no choice but to unify that title unless they strip him of that interim title, right? So I'm excited for what's next for those two. It's going to be a great fight no matter what. That brings us into the final fight card that I missed, which is Jared Cannonier versus Kelvin Gastelum. So, without further ado, let's get into that shit. So, let's get into the final fight card that I missed before I start talking about this weekend's fight night, because even though we don't got any big names on the fight card for the main card, we have some pretty decent fights that I'd love to talk about. So, before we get into that, let's talk about this fight card, and let's make it fucking snappy, because I've got quite a bit to say about the upcoming fight card. Anyway, so the first fight of the night on the Cannonier Gastelum card, on the main card, was Alejandro Pantoja versus Brandon Royval. And Pantoja ended up finishing Royval in the second round via submission. And that led us into a lightweight bout between Vince Pichel and Austin Hubbard, where Vince just completely dominated Austin Hubbard 3 rounds and won via decision. That brings us into the bantamweight bout between Trevin Jones and Said Yakub ABCDEFG. I actually don't know how to pronounce his name. Sorry, I'm gonna try. Kakramonov, I'm guessing is his name. I'm reading it right now, and I'm trying, so bear with me. But they went pretty back and forth, but Kakramonov had the better wrestling, better grappling skills, sunk a choke near the end of round 3, and ended up submitting Trevin Jones. Almost a Trevin Giles. Whoa. And then, I don't know why or how, but Chase Sherman keeps getting UFC chances and went up against Parker Porter in the heavyweight division, having a close fight with him, but ultimately falling via decision against Parker Porter, which led to a co-main event of Clay Guida and Mark Madsen, where I've actually very much fallen in love with Mark Madsen's story, and I was very happy when Mark Madsen was given the judge's nod at the end of this fight against Clay Guida. Mark Madsen won via decision, and that led us into a rather back-and-forth fight between Jared Cannonier and Kelvin Gastelum, where Cannonier was coasting through most of the fight, but Gastelum was giving him a bit of trouble, and especially near the end, Gastelum started picking it up, and Cannonier just almost lost, but ended up getting the judge's nod 48-47 regardless, unanimously. So Jared Cannonier probably in the top 3, top 2 contenders of the middleweight division now because of that, which is pretty nice, because even though Gastelum's fought so hard, I like Cannonier. I really like Cannonier. He's been through a lot. He's been through 3 fucking divisions. And it's nice to see that he's got a nice home where he's actually doing very well for himself. So I'm excited to see where he goes next, what fight is next for him. Maybe Till, or maybe Whitaker again, but I could see Till while Adesanya and Whitaker are getting figured out. because let's be honest, Eugene Behrman's being a douche about things and joking around, and Whitaker's being jokey too. But let's be honest, once they actually figure it out, the fight that they're going to want to make is Izzy versus Bobby Knuckles 2. And honestly, I personally think it might go a different way this time. But yeah, it's gonna be the fight to make, and I have a feeling that Cannonier is gonna go up against Till for that number one contender spot while they're fighting for the title. But that's just my opinion. I'm not a matchmaker. I'm just a fan. So don't take it from me. That's just what I think is going to happen. I don't know if it's officially going to happen. Neither guys have gotten fights yet. There's just been talks. But, a lot of people have been talking about Till getting in the title picture because they think that they're not going to give Bobby Knuckles the chance anymore. So people are thinking Whitaker versus Cannonier 2 for a fight night main event or something. Some people are just thinking, and including me, are thinking Eugene Behrman is just being a trolley troll. So, it could just be Izzy versus Bobby Knuckles 2 and then Cannonier versus Till for that number one contender spot. We'll see. We'll see where the middleweight division goes, but there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of possibilities now after that, so I can't wait to see what's next. But that being said, folks, let's get into the fight night that's happening this weekend. And like I said, there's not very many names, like many big names, so here's the 3 big fights that are on the actual card of names that you might recognize. Mahmoud Muradov versus Gerald Meerschaert, Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez, and obviously the main event, Edson Barboza versus Giga Chad Jakedzi. One of my favorite fighters in the featherweight division, by the way. But those are the 3 fights that actually have main names. But the reason why I'm actually very excited for this card is because I haven't been talking about it this whole podcast, but The Ultimate Fighter came back beginning of July, I believe, and had been airing every week since. So that's TUF 29. And it's leading up to, what is it, the UFC 266 card, I want to say, is the main event of the coaches. I could be wrong. I'll just double check that real quickly here. Yes, that is exactly what it is. My bad. But anyway, so The Ultimate Fighter had been happening. Like, it was being filmed throughout this year, but editing stopped around May. Filming stopped, editing started around May. They started broadcasting it in July. And this is the fight night that is going to determine who are the winners for each of the divisions in that season. So this season was middleweights and bantamweights. So in the co-main event and in the featured fight before the co-main, we have both finales. We'll get into that in a bit. We also have another Ultimate Fighter fight on the card between a runner-up, Andre Petroski, Mr. He need me in the face, or he need me in the back of the head or whatever. Or wait, what did he say? It was he said he fouled him, even though it was a clear knee. Oh, headbutt. He headbutted me in the face, even though it was clear. I was clearly by his crotch, and it was a knee that hit me. Wow, I got headbutted. Going up against Michael Gilmore, and if you want me to be honest, Andre Petroski wins. We've seen how Michael Gilmore does on the ground, and I think because Andre Petroski, as much as I'll call him bitch made for doing that in the middle of a fight, and that was the reason why he lost, he's an incredible wrestler. He's got great ground game. So that is going to be too much for Michael Gilmore, I think. Because Andre Petroski doesn't have the best stand-up, but he's not shitty at stand-up. So he can stand with Michael Gilmore and set up those takedowns. And once it's on the ground, I think it's Petroski's game. But that is, I think it's just kind of like their runner-up fight to see, here's a chance at the UFC. Whoever wins gets an extension on their little contract we gave you type thing. But anyway, let's get into this fight card. Let's get into this shit. So the first fight of the night, like I said, is the middleweight bout between Mahmoud Muradov and Gerald Meerschaert. And if you want me to be honest, I think Muradov wins this one. Meerschaert, he needs to win this because he got completely embarrassed by Khamzat Chimaev. So Mahmoud Muradov, this isn't a must-need win for him, but I think he's going to win. Gerald Meerschaert needs to win. But in my opinion, I think Mahmoud Muradov wins via decision. I think Gerald Mearshart is going to last, but I don't think he's going to do enough to get that decision win. I don't think he's going to finish Muradov. That's my prediction. Muradov in 3 via decision. And then the next fight is that Andre Petroski versus Michael Gilmore fight. You guys already got my 2 cents on that fight. I think it's going to end in 1 via submission. If not, it's going to end via submission in round 2. Either way, expect Andre Petroski to win by submission. And then up next after that, we've got Kevin Lee making another return to welterweight. And honestly, I think because D-Rod is stepping in on short notice, I think Kevin Lee wins this easily via knockout or decision. But if this was full camp D-Rod, I think it would have been a harder fight. But I think Kevin Lee comes out on top on this one. Now, we're getting into the 3 last fights of the main card. And the 2 of them are the Ultimate Fighter finale. And I have to say, I'm happy that these 2 boys are in the finale. Okay? So the first fight is the bantamweight finale with Ricky Turcios going up against Brady Hiestand, somebody who's literally my age. This kid has shown he's no slouch on the ground. He's no slouch on the feet. He's got a chin. He's got heart. And he's intelligent when it comes to the game. But on the other side across from him is his teammate, Ricky Turcios, who's a veteran in this game, who's got this wacky ideology of how things work in the fight game. And that helps him with this unique style and this warrior mentality, this genuine, like, not this, I'm going to go in and kill mentality, but this, like, be like water, breathe and calm warrior mentality where he doesn't let himself get overly, like, emotional in the cage. And he does his job. So it's going to be a hard fight for both guys, but fuck, man. It could be biasism, but I think that Ricky Turcios is going to come out of this with the decision. Because I don't think he's going to put Brady away easy. I don't think Brady's going to put him away easy. I think it's going to be a wacky, insane back-and-forth fight. But at the end of the day, I think Ricky Turcios is going to win via decision, and he's going to be the Ultimate Fighter Season 29 Bantamweight winner. That brings us to the co-main event, which is another one of my favorite Ultimate Fighter fighters, Brian Battle, going up against Gilbert Urbina. This was originally not supposed to be the finale. It was supposed to be Brian Battle versus former light heavyweight and current middleweight Tresean Gore, who actually was looking to be a complete monster of mixed martial arts. Not the absolute best on the ground, but good enough where he can defend and get back up to his feet. His stand-up was insane. He's got these, like, snapping fucking strikes that have power to them. He's actually an incredibly good striker. So it was supposed to be him against all-around mixed martial artist Brian Battle. But unfortunately, Tresean had to pull out, like, a couple weeks before. I think, earlier this week, maybe late last week, due to a knee injury. And, you know, these things happen during training. The human body it can only handle so much, right? So unfortunately, he had to pull out. But Brian Battle's teammate, Gilbert Urbina, stepped in on short notice. So now he has another chance of being the Ultimate Fighter winner and the first Urbina brother to actually win the Ultimate Fighter. So it's going to be pretty nice. Both guys are teammates. So it's pretty insane. The only Team Ortega guy to make it into the finale had to pull out citing injury. So it's all 4 Team Volk guys going up against each other in the finales. But if you want my 2 cents, I think Brian Battle gets it done via decision. Again, it could be biasism, but I've seen what Gilbert Urbina can do, and I think he doesn't pose that much of a threat to Brian Battle as long as Brian Battle stays calm and hungry like he did during the entire tournament. So definitely, I think Brian Battle's going to come out as the Ultimate Fighter winner. I had doubts before when he was going against Tresean Gore, but now I definitely think he's going to come out the winner of the middleweights. That leads us to the main event of the evening. And this fight, for all intents and purposes, is going to be fireworks. We have 2 kickboxers, guys who love to strike, two guys who have crazy kicks, and those crazy kicks have power. Edson Barboza, known for some of the craziest spinning kicks in the UFC. Everybody knows that knockout he had on Terry Edom where he literally stole poor Terry Edom's soul. But anyway, that he's going up against Giga Chikadze, who's got probably the most deadliest body kick in the fucking division, known as the Giga kick. So I've only seen it land to the body, and it immediately keels people over. But I can only imagine what it's like when it lands to the fucking head. Anyway, this is going to be a great fight, but all in all, who is going to come out on top? I don't think there's going to be a finish. If there's going to be a finish, it's going to be Giga Chikadze via body kick, but I don't think there's going to be a finish. It's going to be too technical for that. It's a hard one to determine because both guys are great with their kickboxing. Both guys are very technical with their kickboxing and everything. But personally, I think Giga Chikadze might come out on top via decision. But I won't be disappointed if Edson comes out on top via decision too, because you can't count Edson. You just can't count Edson out. So this is a hard one to call, but I think Giga Chikadze is going to get the nod. Those are my predictions. So to patch everything up, to recap, I got Giga Chikadze, Brian Battle, Ricky Tercios, Kevin Lee, Andre Petrosky, and Mahmoud Muradov. All going to be the winners of the main card of tomorrow night's fights. But that being said, that's it for this week's episode. Don't expect an episode next week. It'll be the week after, when my days off are officially going to be Wednesdays and Thursdays, and I can actually get to the schedule. That's when everything is going to start. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys stuck with me through this 2.5 month absence. If you haven't, I completely understand. But if you have, thank you for listening and tuning in and just, waiting with bated breath this whole time. I'm so sorry I made you guys wait. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys have an incredible weekend. I hope you guys enjoy tomorrow's fights. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out, guys.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.